All right, Sacha, I think let's make a start before the gremlins interfere again. And maybe just quickly, just tell everyone a little bit about you, your background, where your passion for animals started.
Yeah, so like most of us, I think, from a very young age, loved animals, especially dogs. But actually, my brother was really allergic to all animals, so I couldn't have anything but rabbits because they were outside. They couldn't be in the house. And so as soon as I left home, I got my first dog, and then I became a vet nurse back in 2003. So I've been a vet nurse for over 20 years now, and then probably like the last 5, 6 years, I've kind of more seriously got into behaviour,
Mm.
and I've been doing that. I've done my Coke diploma. So yes, now we have O'Day Vets, which is in Centurion. So it's self and also Dr. Loanne, my sister-in-law, who's the veterinary ophthalmologist. She works from there too. So yeah, it's like a family business. So we do training and we do eye stuff. So that's us.
Okay, fantastic. Yeah, I love watching your training videos, when you post them online. Very cute. All right.
Like everyone, I hate the social media aspect, but we have to do what we have to do.
You see, that's the one thing. All righty, so today we're going to talk about, I suppose, a controversial subject in the sense that we call it Littermate Syndrome, but yeah,
Yes.
you explain why we don't use that term.
Yeah, I think it's one of those of us who are kind of quite science-based behaviourists, we like to, rather than just say things, oh, this doesn't work because of this, so we like to back it up with theory, basically. And Littermate syndrome is one of those that is talked about a lot, but actually the scientific evidence is not quite there to say that, it's because of two a brother and sister from the same litter or two females from the same litter. However, us behaviourists, trainers, people who deal with families will tell you there's definitely an issue, but perhaps that's not the reason as such. It's not because they were both from the same litter. There's other aspects, and actually it can also equally be a problem with two pups of similar age. So it isn't just that it is a littermate syndrome as such. So that's why that term isn't quite correct. So we don't often like using it, but we do because people understand what we're talking about when it is, because it's quite a common term that is used. So yes, but yeah, kind of behaviourists will kind of err on the side of caution of using it.
So it's definitely something that happens. It's just the technical side of it. You just don't want to.
Yeah, and why it happens, because I think before it was like, it's that brother sister, sister sister, brother brother relationship. That is why. And actually, it's perhaps less that, and it's more because you have two very immature dogs together, kind of getting up to mischief, doing things that they perhaps wouldn't do with a more of an age gap with another dog. And so, yeah, that kind of intensity of spending their whole life together, being with each other all the time. So it's kind of looking at actually what is the problem here. Is it because they both came from the same mother, or is there something else? So yes, they definitely, I mean, when a puppy class, I do puppy classes, when they, people arrive with, quite often they arrive with two dogs from the same breeder or from a rescue as well. And I think for me, coming from the UK, it's quite a big no over there compared to here. I was surprised at how much, moving over here, how much it does happen, whereas in the UK you would see it the odd time, but generally rescues will not allow you to rehome two from the same litter. And sensible breeders won't either. So, and that's why, coming here, it's a bit like, we do this, do we?
Yeah, so how do we manage this? So why do you think it is people get two puppies or two dogs of similar ages?
I think quite often it's that guilt of you get a pup or a young dog who's kind of active, interested, and then you're at work all day. And so people think that, just to solve that problem, I'll get another dog and then they can be friends all day. And I get where they're coming from, but actually doesn't perhaps work that way. Often people are like, oh, I don't want them to get like separation anxiety from, you know, being on their own all day, so let's get them a friend. But actually, a lot of separation is to do with that bond with the human. It's a social bond with the human. The problem isn't the bond with the other dog. So if you've got the two dogs, you're going to have two times looking for the human to come home, making the noise or destroying the house because the human isn't home. So yeah, I think it is a lot of people. And also, hey, this country has got a huge problem with dogs that need homes. Shelters, as you know, are bursting, as you know, rescues, people that are doing it not in shelters. You're kind of networking rescues, you know, we are dire. It's a dire situation over here for the amount of animals dogs that need a home, and cats. So for rescue, it's, you know, you want to take two? Okay, take two, because then that's not a life of kennels for two. But I think in the UK we're very spoiled, but a lot of our rescues, what their aim is to try and keep down the number of returns that they get. You know, for them it's kind of another upheaval. So their focus when they're looking at vetting homes, it's like looking at your situation, is this right for the dog, because is there potential for fallout, and then you're going to try and return one or both of those dogs to us. So that's their focus, whereas here we're a little bit more of a, we need to make space, we need to get these dogs out of here, basically, because it's not a nice situation. So then they're like, okay, you want to, there may be a problem, but they may not, so let's try it and see. So I think it's kind of, it's a lot harder here because of the situation with the number of dogs looking for homes.
The number of dogs. Yeah, I mean, we had two instances. One, when Boudica was a puppy, she's 11 now, but when she was a pup and she came to our home, we had a male that was about 7-8 months old, and the two of them they were the biggest mates. And Darties passed away very, very suddenly when he was about 7 years old. And it took Boudica a very long time to bounce back from that. I could see it, and I didn't click. You know, it was because of their very special bond at that time. So, you know, even although they were from different litters, they had such a connection within our home. And we have other, I mean, at that point, I think we had 6 Ridgebacks in total. But the two of them, you know, it was just such a special relationship. So, you know, even at an 8-month, I think it was about 7 or 8 months, the difference in age. So at what point do you think it's a good time to bring in another dog?
I think again, research, the papers say, I think the most success is around 3 years of age. But I think there's so many factors, personality-wise and things like that, to take into account. There's some dogs that are lifelong pups that maybe need a little bit later, they mature a bit later in life. And it all depends on the kind of sociability and stuff. So I think on paper it's around 3 years. Gap is good. For myself, I think my gap this time was 18 months for the 2 dogs I've got now. And they were there was quite intense play and things, which is another problem. There's quite intense play for them when they were younger, which is matured now. But now actually we've got a pup in our home at the moment, and there's like a 4 or 5 year gap between them, and the difference in the interactions is so much, like, you know, the pup's there hanging off my dog's ears, and then they're tolerated to a point, and then there's a bit of a stiffness, and the pup goes, oh, okay, not today then. And then one that maturity that you don't get when 2 pups of a similar age are playing. It's that one says, actually, I've had enough, and the other one's like, no, you haven't, we're going to keep going, and then that's what they learn. That's how they learn to interact. So that's like another issue we see, is that over the top play, because they're kind of together all the time, they have enough of each other, and then they're telling each other off, and that has to get more and more severe with the tellings off, because we're similar size, similar energy level, I want to play, you're telling me you don't, but we play all the time, so let's try again. And that kind of can then lead to conflict and then negative relationships, because it's not so well managed. Whereas like an older dog is a little bit like, okay, we're done now. You're biting too hard, or you've done too much. And so that is what we need when we've got two dogs together. We want one to be a little bit more mature, a little bit more steady, because puppies are not.
Yeah, they just don't control themselves. And because that's the other thing as well, is that now the two pups are together, so they're having so much fun that they are not, the human is just not fun. So they're bonding with each other and they're not making that connection with the human being. So look, it happens, people get two puppies. So how do they overcome that?
So yeah, so we again in puppy class we see it a lot, and going to people's homes, and so when they come in, especially when there's a problem, it's hard to get them to come away from each other because it is so intense, and you're kind of not there when they're in throes of play and things. So in puppy class, I mean, ideally you would take a pup to a session each, ideally, but a lot of people, that doesn't work for their kind of work life, managing to come to class. So quite often we try and separate them. There's, dogs in between. So there's one handler with one pup and then a few dogs and then another one over the other side. And pretty much always that first 1 or 2 sessions, they can't cope. They're like trying to get to each other. They're like, no, we need to be together for this. And then after that, then it kind of works. So it's that independence, walking them on their own, having shorter walks, but having them so that they're having their walks on their own. And playtime with that human. All their play isn't just with their sibling. The play happens with the human as well. And take it in turns, short sessions, so that they can see that you're kind of here as well. It's not just a fun house with them and their sibling or other people in the house. So, and having that separation, because quite often there is the problem that the play gets over the top, and then that can spill out into problematic behaviour. And at that point is when you need to separate them. So if they've spent their whole life never being separated or done anything independently, and then they've kind of had some negative interaction, so you have to separate, then you've got them whining, pacing, and they can't cope, and it's even more stressful than what they've just been through. So having that time, okay, it's your chill out time on your own, not necessarily with the other pup, is also necessary. So, and this is why we kind of try to tell people not to do it. So if you come and ask me before you get the pups, I'm going to tell you no, because it is double the work. You're doing twice as much, because now a lot of people take that second pup thinking, okay, no, it's a playmate, I have to do less because they're going to wear each other out. But actually, if you want to do it so that you're going to have no problems, you're going to be doing twice the work, because each dog's going to need their own enrichment. They're going to need their own walks. They're going to need their own training. So if you want it so that they have a good relationship throughout the whole life and they're kind of stable dogs, then you're going to have to do that independently. And also another one important is socializing with other dogs. So if you watch two dogs playing or learning about each other, there's that kind of, they go up to each other, and then there's that kind of walk in the circle where they start to sniff, and that circle gets smaller, and then maybe a little bit of play and things happen. When you've got two dogs coming into one dog who's there, then that goes out the window. That other dog is either kind of running towards them or running away from them, and it becomes a completely different dynamic. And so then your dogs don't learn how to socialize or how to kind of just exist with other dogs properly. They're just used to running at them. The dog runs away, we both chase them, and then that also is a problem further down the line as they get bigger.
Yeah. I think that's a common thing, where people want a companion. They think the two pups will keep each other company, and it is literally double the trouble. We had and the other thing that for me, when one of the pups have to go to the vet or to the groomer, and just that short separation, the anxiety of the puppy that stays, or the dog, the adult dog, because that stays behind in this pair, the anxiety is quite high for them.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, they can't cope. It's that separation of, oh my goodness, my world falls apart. I'm used to always having the other pup by my side. As well, like the confidence, they get their confidence from that other pup. So then when that pup's not there, their confidence completely falls away, which is why they need that kind of independent time, and just to get used to being on their own and knowing how to cope with the world as a solo dog.
I've heard that some people say that in a pair like that, one will be the confident one, and the other one is almost like they don't develop fully, um, not physically but socially. They're always kind of seeking the other one as comfort. So you will get a strong one and then the weaker one that never really reaches their potential. Is that correct?
Yeah, that sometimes happens. Yeah, definitely. And yeah, but then sometimes it can be the other way. You've got one that's all confident when he's with his friend, and then you take the friend away, and he's like, "Oh, hold on,
Yeah.
there was two of us. What do I do in this situation?" So
Yeah.
sometimes it can hide or give someone, give one of them an inflated confidence that
Yes.
isn't quite there
Yeah.
when they're
Yeah.
solo, especially around other dogs.
Yeah. We did. I think I told you we had the two Reggies last year,
Yeah,
Sunya and Gutro,
yeah.
and the owner passed away, and the dogs were left at the property for a while. And they were brother and sister, so they were always together and just with their owner. And then she passed away. We eventually, and initially, we thought it would be a good thing to adopt them together to the same home. It was a complete disaster, and not because the people didn't care or didn't love them. The two dogs were so bonded and so scared, they just couldn't. Which one is going to move to the human being first?
Yeah.
So we decided after about a month, which is a short time, but I think we took the decision quite quickly and we brought them in. We worked with them, I think, close to 3 months, just building their confidence. Puzzles, spending time with them. And then we adopted them to two separate homes. Both of them experienced Ridgeback owners who had an established group of dogs already. I made the agreement with them that they will come and pick the two dogs up on the same day, so that I don't have one that stays behind, 1 or 2 days, and for the other one to be gone. And even when they went into their homes, and these two people that adopted have been absolutely amazing in the way that they've just allowed them to settle into themselves, build their confidence within a new group. And it wasn't easy, because I know Sunya, for instance, we thought that she was the confident, dominant one. The moment we took Gucho away, that it was like that, what you said. She was not comfortable and she was hiding under the bush. Now, I mean, she's like a completely different dog, but it took a good 5 months just for
Yeah.
her to come into her confidence, just to settle. They had other issues as well. They were scared of men. I don't know why, if anything happened when they were puppies. So all of those things. And it's a lot of people said to me, make sure you adopt them together.
Yeah.
And it was a very big decision. And I had a lot of anxiety over, are we doing the right thing to split them up? And we were lucky. And unfortunately, there aren't that many homes that are prepared to invest in a dog for an indefinite period of time.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where the returns come from as well. When people say, sorry, I just can't cope, I need to have a life as well.
Yeah. And that's why we kind of, in puppy class, we really reinforce you need to start now to get that separation, like get them used to being independent. Because how old were these pups that you had? How old when you got them?
When we got them, they were about 2. Yeah.
Okay.
2
So
years
by
old.
now, that's their identity.
Yeah, it's absolutely. And they were, we just literally, they were sticking like glue to each other everywhere they went. Even just, moving one out of the camp area into another camp. The one staying behind, although she can see,
Yes.
she would just flip out and cry.
Yeah.
So we spent an awful lot of time just building their confidence, first together, and later on as they progress, separately, but they can still have access to each other. So it was a long process, and it's, especially when an accident happens and one of those dogs in the bonded pair dies, I think think the trauma of the one that stays behind, that because it must be so big that they don't, their whole world, like you say, is falling away.
Yeah. Yeah, no, we put the human emotion like without thinking about the right way. When we see two puppies together, we want to keep them together, or in the rescue, oh, they're both together. It's that kind of emotion of, oh, you know, we should get them to stick together, but we need to think about it properly. What is actually best for them in the long run? It's better for them in the long run for us to separate them and get them used to it while we can, while they're young, because once they're, you know, 7, 8, 9, it is a huge impact for them.
Yeah. So would you say if, so for instance, you have a bonded pair like that at age 7 or 8 and they have to be rehomed, would you then reevaluate and say, okay, maybe we should keep them together, the stress is going to be too much? Or should we just look at it at each individual scenario?
Yeah, I think on an individual basis. So again, in the UK and rescue, the rescues would start a slow kind of process of getting them to be individual, spending time alone too, with the aim to home them separately, hopefully to home with other dogs, so they have a doggy friend, but maybe not that. And because I find with older dogs, there's two together that have grown up together, but quite often there's a problematic relationship. It's not always a smooth sailing relationship. So if you see those warning signs that there are, like, one doesn't let the other one get attention, or, you know, there's problems around resources, stuff like that, then I definitely think it would be better in the long run, because there are some dogs that they're used to them being together, and you see that human comes along and then the other one's like, no, this is my turn, or this is my human, not yours, and they're very much, and then so the other dog's like, okay, I'll walk away, and that's become like their relationship. And whilst it looks like they're really, really bonded, it's because there's one that is perhaps not
just controlling the whole relationship.
Yeah, and it's actually not. When we kind of take away that initial, oh, but they've been together forever, if we actually look at how the dynamic in the house, quite often it's not a positive one, and it is better kind of, and it is hard, even the one that perhaps isn't living their best life, it's hard for them because, you know, you're my security, you're all unknown, but you do it slowly. It isn't done, you know, you separate you, and it is the process that you need to go through to help them.
Yeah. I think the short of it is if you do decided to get two puppies, is you've got double the work, because you have to raise them as two separate individuals. So everything has to be done separately. Obviously, they'll have their together time, but the majority of it is spent raising each individual pup, taking their likes and dislikes into account and developing them and making them strong individuals, and then allowing them time together. I think us as human beings, what you say is that, oh, they've been together, oh, they're so cute. I mean, I look at the Ridgebacks, and even in their litter, from 8 weeks on, it's a nightmare. And all their personalities come out, you know, so at that age you can still manage it, but it's a hard decision, and I think we need to sometimes not do what's right for us, but do what's right for the dogs. And what seems to be the easy choice, getting two pups to keep each other together, is definitely in the long run not the easy choice.
Not easy at all. And there are people that have had two, and they are like, oh no, it's fine, it has been fine. Quite often you don't see it right at the beginning, you know, they're puppies, they're young, it's kind of, you know, a couple of years down the line when those hormones are there and they've had a few negative interactions, and then problems arise. And sometimes it is, you also take breed into account. I see a lot of problems more in like your bull terriers, your dogs that enjoy a bit of conflict. It's like fun for them to have those brawls. They really love it. So then when you've got them, you've got that. You haven't got like a mature one to be like, okay, this is going too far now, and you haven't. You've got them at the same age. Some of those fights can be intense, you know. you know, and cause benefits and things. So I think breed does play a part. Maybe if you've got, you know, a couple of chihuahuas, it's perhaps a little bit of a squabble and no one gets too injured. Okay.
Yeah.
But I think generally when you're trying to get a happy home, multi-dog households are difficult, as you know, so they're not always plain sailing. So they're just things that we can do to be a little bit more sensible, to try and make those households as happy as possible, really.
Yeah, I think, you know, for me, it is such an interesting subject. And although we want to make sure all dogs are in homes and not sitting in cages, you know, what is going to be the fallout of homing dogs of similar ages together, getting puppies of similar ages from breeders. You know, if you don't have the support and you don't have the time to invest in one puppy, how are you going to raise two puppies? And how are you going to socialize two dogs? So yeah, Sascha, I love this topic because I think, you know, we try and humanize too much our relationship, and although we love them very, very much, we need to look at their needs and what they need as well. But yeah, so thank you so much for the chat. People can find you on your website, odayvets.co.za.
Yep, that's us. Or on social media, Oday Vets, we're there.
Yep. Yes, and then every Wednesday you also write our little furry files. So we talk about different behavior things like for cats and dogs. You write some brilliant articles for us, for the cats as well, for the magazine. I always love reading those. So yeah, thank you very, very much for everything that you do, you know, to raise awareness and to educate as well.
No worries. Thank you for the great resource. The magazine's amazing. You put so much work into it.
Oh,
thank you.
All righty. You have a lovely day, Sascha. Thanks for your time.
Take care. Bye.
Bye. Bye-bye.